Hello, and good evening, people of Krakow. So it's nice to meet you all, and happy to be here tonight with you. All time exciting for me meeting with a new community, new people. So and I glad to offer you a probably most favorite topic for all software developers: architecture. Software developers like to talk about those things, and I believe that maybe in 100 years, doesn't matter if we'll be AI or not AI and so on, we will talk about architecture all time when we gather together. Namely, it will be about MVVM, MVVM in general, MVVM in Flutter, and a little bit of details of my personal implementation of MVVM for Flutter, which is called Elementary, open source library. But first of all, let me introduce myself. Oh, it seems it doesn't not work. Okay. My name is Mikhail Zotyev. I'm Dart and Flutter GD. Also, I'm an organizer of meetup community Flutter Voronezh, similar to yours, in the same meetup networks. Also, a person who really like open source and believe on its principles. Also, I have a channel about Flutter on my Flutter. You're welcome to join. I will be happy. Especially if so many people simultaneously join channel. In my regular day-to-day work, I'm a software developer who work with Flutter for Vault. On this slide, you can see my nickname that you can use to find me in any social network which you personally prefer. And let's go to the topic. I believe that the good entry point for those topic is why do we need those architectural patterns at all? We are developers, we are smart people, we can create every project like a place of creativity, build something from scratch, not only solving business problem, but solving them in a different environment. Why do we need this? But eventually all time when we're working on the project, we choose to create some bunch of rules which we follow everyone in the those project, or we personally do those because it's bring us predictability. It's make our work process something like conveyor, in which we can focus on solving business problems of our product. Because of course we all like code, but code by itself, it costs nothing. Code should solve a problem of us, our customers, whoever. But without focusing, we will spend our time on the different things. And in the modern development, it's something that we cannot allow to us, to not lose for our competitors. But the creation of code is a really small part. The more important even is the maintenance of this code. And here's on the slide, not accidentally car engine, because I think for every development, not only for software development, there are similarities between each other. And if we just look back for maybe 1 century before, when the car era started, there was a place of enthusiast people who had this as a hobby. They created car, they drove those car, raced on those car, and it was a place of creativity, as we discussed. But then, when it's become a business, the manufacturers start creating a model of car and repeat them to help them when something goes wrong, to maintain those easily and so on. And it's end up that modern days those car developments so standardized that you can bring to your home from any place around the world a car, and if something goes wrong, your neighborhood mechanic or your own can fix it, because you know what to expect from those things. So for us as developers, architectural pattern is exactly the same standard that we use for be on the same page when we work with the code, even code which we first time see. And there are many architectural patterns. So I wanted on this slide to show as many as it's possible and ask AI to build a cloud of words relative to architecture and patterns and so on. And first of all, first glance, I was really disappointed because it's regular everyday creativity of UI. I thought that too many things that even do not exist. But then I thought maybe it's just they not exist. But I just do not know about them because there are many patterns which pretty specific for concrete technology. For example, there are general patterns, MVC, MVVM, MVI, and so on. But there is, for example, Viper. If there is any iOS developer, you're probably familiar with this. But for any other people, what is Viper? I don't know. And same is in Flutter, we have a block. I mean, not a library block, but the pattern which was created. So people in Flutter understand exactly what we mean when we say block. But for people from different technologies, it may nothing. And for quite some time in Flutter documentation, there was nothing about architecture. There was libraries, concrete libraries, but nothing about architecture in general, about approach or some advices and so on. And quite recently, we got this, that's using MVVM for your applications may be a good choice. So I know that is holy war topic because there are people who say that it's completely not suitable for Flutter. It shouldn't be there at all. There are people who believe that it's the only one way how to do this. And it's usually between this polarized opinion, I believe that the truth somewhere between those. So even that I'm personally really favor MVVM, I would say that requires a lot of work to make it suitable for Flutter and a lot of understanding about Flutter itself. And what is MVVM? So by the way, who is familiar with this pattern already? Nice, quite a lot of people. So MVVM is an architectural pattern which named as abbreviation by 3 layers, which is used in those pattern: model, view, and view model. And let's tackle them one by one. First of all, model. Model is classes that are not visual usually. It's something related to our domain of application. And we can easily say that those classes is a foundation or core of our application. I mean, the main part of this application. So it's define what our application is about. And from application to application, it's quite different classes. View, oppositely, it's something that completely visual. It's responsible for structuring, layouting, how it's look like, what user see, and those things usually similar from application to application. Button is button for every application. And to connect those things, there is a view model layer, which is some kind of clue between them. And usually it's an abstraction which helps to connect those things. It's not dictate how to show, but provide all that's needed for defining what user will see. And of course, control the business part of the application. So how they connected with each other, and they connected pretty straightforward. They just directly know the only one below level. For example, view knows about view model. It uses its properties, bind to those properties, can operate with the commands, and so on and so forth, but has no clue about model. View model from its side, it knows about model, it can update it, control it, and so on, but has no clue about view. And since it's one side connection, one side direction, we can say that we cannot interact on the opposite side. What to do in this case? And pretty common for those approach is make some kind of notification or something. So every layer model, view model can just notify that something changed, something happened, and so on. And the layer above it can react on those things. But when we described model, it was really generic. And it's because it's literally can be anything. It can be data classes, it can be a special responsible object about domain, for example, some service, or you can call it control or whatever. And because of this, and because of different implementation from technology to technology, usually there are two approaches how you can also organize a relation between those things. For example, it can be one view model which operate with many models, or there is a dedicated model for view model which contains everything that it's necessary. There is no right or wrong approach. Both of them has pros and cons, and we will check them a bit later. But in general, there are so many rules which we already described, but for what? Which benefits we can get from using MVVM? First of all, it's a good separation of concerns. You always know what to put where. For example, if you have a visual part of your work, you definitely know that it's view. If you have a business, you have another place, and so on. The same for view model. And those layers, they are, as we can see, quite independent from each other. Yes, there is a dependency, but this dependency is quite straightforward. So people literally can work on those things separately if abstraction is good enough. And even you can dedicate a really creative person for view part, even designers, and so on. And they can work independently. So redesign also quite efficient because you do not affect any other parts and work only with the view part. The one thing which is not on the slide, but I also would like to highlight this, for us as a cross-platform developers, it's also additional benefit. We usually run our application on quite different, let's say, screens. It can be a huge TV, desktop, maybe mobile, web, watch, smartwatch, and the all part, apart from how we present it to the user, they're pretty similar. But we can just create different views, different implementation of those things, and show for different devices different part for only one layer. All other is reused. So it's all was about in general, but what's about Flutter? And here is a tricky thing, because Flutter by itself, it's a framework. And framework here is mean that we do not directly use Flutter code. It's opposite. Flutter code use directly our code. We provide this code, and Flutter somehow run this code and interact with this. So because of this, we need not only care about how MVVM works, but how Flutter works and how they can work together. And the first question usually from here regarding Flutter, and what is a view? And maybe on the first glance, it's a valid answer. Everything is widget in Flutter, so view is a widget. But I would say that no. Not really. Like, first of all, widget is quite complicated concept in general, even if it seems pretty straightforward. First of all, we can run any code and any responsibility with widget, almost any. We can even calculate something inside if we want. We can provide dependency, we can do anything, and not everything of those is a visual part. So then you can say, okay, you are too picky. Some widget is a view. But I also would not agree with this. Another tricky thing, that when we talk about view and its responsibility, we say that there is a layouting, there is a representation of something that we want to show for the user. And if widget, at least some widget, is a view, so probably we need to see something when we create this widget, right? If I put 1,000 different instances of widgets in variable, will something happen? I believe that not. Before we insert those widgets into the tree, they will not appear anywhere, and so on. And oppositely, if we create one instance of widget, put into the variable, and return it, insert into the widget tree 5 times. So we will have 5 different representation of those widgets. So which those representation belong to widget which is in variable? No one. So widget here is more intent to show something. And to additionally talk about this, we can check the description of what is the widget. Widget is an immutable description of part of user interface. And we can say that there are 2 ways of using those widgets, if we even talk about the, something that we want to show to the user. It's a composition of different other widgets, or create something that we want to show, the render object. And because of this, when we insert our widget, we have some kind of structure of description, what you want to show, the real instances which created afterward, and the render object which build some kind of layouting and so on. And all those responsibilities which we describe for views, they are spread between those instances. So maybe we can say that all those things is some kind of view, but even in this case it's not completely correct, because even render, which is called render object, is not a real view. So if we build all those things but then stop providing information about the result to engine, we will see nothing, because we work here. Widgets, they're below render object and so on. But real view is here in engine, because we have a rendering part, we have a engine, graphic engine, which shows what we exactly create. And there is a big difference between another technology which also use MVVM as a popular approach. For example, here is AOE from Microsoft, or even Android. So when we have this, yes, we have a description, but usually those descriptions go together with some real instance object that we can operate with. For example, text view, we can directly say, I want to take instance view with this ID, for example, ID of this text view, and change text from default text to another. So we operating with this real instance. And what's happening with the Flutter? We also have text, but it seems not be something that we can change for this. It's returning for us rich text and so on. It's returning hiddenly. And we do not operate with those parts directly. But even if we will operate with those parts directly, for example, we take global key, put into widget, then with this global key, we will go and find this render paragraph. Then we take this poor render paragraph and finally change the property of text or whatever we will find there. So it will not, it will work, but probably not for long before any rebuild comes from this part. And it again may rewrite our changes that we made directly. So what I would like to say here, to change those properly, we need to replace those parts. Maybe update, maybe replace, but we work usually from those positions. And we just made another intent, providing a new version of widget. So yes, we can say that we can operate on the widgets to finally have something like view, but it's not view at all, and we should take an account that this part is only way how we can describe what you want to show, and in the end, hiddenly, all those composition, layouting, building, and so on will be done. Second part of tricky thing that, as I said, Flutter works its own way, and engine periodically ask framework what I want, what I need to show to the user. And framework usually, after all calculation and so on, send a scan to make able user see something on the screen. And between those things, anything can happen, and we need to react and adjust work of our MVVM, even if we say that it can be represented with some widget. So all those construction, let's say it's MVVM widget. Now what's going to happen? The simplest thing is can be just deleted. And in this case, we need to stop work of all happening in MVVM trio and somehow destroy it, clean, and so on. What can happen also? We have a environment usually around our widgets, which also can change. For example, if our MVVM combination showed some I don't know, card or screen with a detailed item. And this is shown by ID, and this ID somehow provided by the tree, for example, before. This value that can be changed, for example, in the previous talk, there was talk about web. So what's happening if a user just go and directly change ID in the web browser? So our routing works, everything update, and our MVVM widget must react on this. Otherwise, it will be broken behavior. It also can be moved around the tree in a different place because of global key, maybe even not directly, but because of parent who has this global key and moving with this parent into a different place. So we maybe need to somehow react on that has happened and do some work. So there are all tricky questions, to be honest, and I already worked a little bit on those things, but it was quite ago. So first of all, it's started maybe 2019 when I changed my job from game development to mobile development, and I joined a company that's called Surf. It's an agency, and it was really beginning of the Flutter, and because of this, no one knows how Flutter work and so on. And it's happened that the department which appears in this company and work with Flutter, it was completely from Android developers, ex-developers. So when I came, to this company, there already was MVVM. To be honest, all those things which we discussed right now, we even never think about this. It just was really straightforward implementation, let's say it this way. And 2 years we work with those implementation, and anyway, it works quite good for us. So sometimes it was painful, sometimes we had some problem, and so on. But anyway, based on this, I found some pain points of those implementation. And when I start working on my own implementation, I already took them in account. And fortunately for me, I had quite rapidly career on those company, and after 2 years, I found out myself on a position of tech lead of those department, and with a lot of freedom, to be honest, which I was really happy about, because the only requirement was make work and make our department more efficient, more money. It's good. So, and apart from all those works, I also tried to maybe a bit improving the technical development stuff. So I started from the those point. We started a new project, and I came to team which worked on this project, started work on this project, and pitched them my idea. So it even wasn't implementation and library and so on. So pitched just idea, and we decided to try, because they also found it quite interesting and maybe beneficial. And because of it's quite isolated, we decided that if something goes wrong, we can easily get rid of this and never ever think about this and roll back to default implementation with all problems and so on. But implementation was quite efficient as it happened, and team gave a good feedback. We improved a lot of things and shared with other teams. A few teams tried at the end, and we find out that it's work for us good. So I also created this as a open source, and it became available for all community. The library, which called elementary and so on. So I'm maintaining it still and so on. Even like few years already, I do not work with the server, but I'm still thankful for them for supporting open source, and especially my project, because providing working hours, even support for teammates, it's a good investment in open source. So great kudos. But let's go to the library. It's called elementary, and sometimes people ask, it's a strange name. Why it's elementary? And first of all, because it's elementary, my dear Watson. It's pretty simple, so not so fancy and so on. It's just doing its work, nothing more. And the second reason is because, as everything in Flutter, there is a gray cardinal behind everything. It's an element. So everything built around element and work around element. And what I wanted from this library when I started, first of all, I wanted to make it developer friendly. Moreover, I wanted Flutter developer friendly. So people for working this literally should know only Flutter. And I don't want them to learn library, some additional things, and so on. So basic Flutter knowledge should be enough to start and work efficiency with this. Also, I wanted to have a good performance, because otherwise it makes no sense to create something. Personally, I really like when that we create seems a bit good quality. And on the slide, I name it serious craftsmanship. So tests on the long-term maintenance and so on. and there is a option with asterisk, which related to my previous position on those companies that I want to solve a maybe not easy solvable problem. When we have some project and we need to accelerate development, the first thing which came to mind is just bring another developer. One developer, two developer. But apparently it doesn't work. I don't know why, but somehow it doesn't work. So I wanted to make those things so independent that those developers stop disturbing each other and can work independently, and those bringing new developers start work. So yeah, let's see how it's happened. And this is the schema which I already showed, and what I choose. So first of all, elementary model, widget model instead of view model, and as we already discussed, the result of build should represent the view part of in this library. And based on my personal experience, I choose the not so popular but also valid way with a dedicated model. I will try to explain why, because it's also possible, but in general, when we put all those responsibilities on view model, there are usually quite a lot of code which blow this view model so monstruously that it's complicated to support. And when we have a dedicated view model, the problem is creating this view model. Sorry, not view model, creating this view test model. Yeah, and after this we have a separate place. So this was a choice. And how does it work? So when we insert our representation of MVVM into the tree, it's creating element, and element start working and asking that I need a view model and asking representation of all those things, configuration that create those view model. View model is provided, and then it can be used. And how it's used, it's provided back to the build method and asking, so here's the view model, this is the abstraction that you need, just describe me only, straightforwardly, stupidly describe me what to show and nothing more, do nothing else. And there's everything, so it's yeah, close together. So as I said, there is a gray cardinal element and so on, but you do not work with this, it's already implemented, and you never touch this usually. But what you work with mostly, and the most amount of code there, is a widget model. It's a working horse of all those things. It's connect between view and view model, orchestrate all business processes which starting on the screen or initiated by the screen, and contains all logic which related to presentation. So what can be used to show user something. And I wanted this widget model be efficient like this beautiful orange car, not this back days beautiful gray car. And to make this, I analyzed what's happening usually when we work with let's say some view. So view usually they do not change simultaneously and completely. So it's quite maybe in examples and so on, but in a real application, when something happens, usually the small part of your screen is changing. And in Flutter, if we talk about the description of what to show, it's efficiently to rebuild only small parts when something happens. And to reach this, every property of this widget model, view model, they implement publisher-subscriber pattern. So they can emit new value, and only subscriber on those value is updated. So something like this. We have few properties. Those properties exist. We start to build it subtree describing what's happening, and when we reach the place when it should be affected by one of this property, we start watching for this, subscribe on this, and waiting for results. So when everything completed and one of property updated, we do not replace or remove a lot of things, but replace the small part which affected by those change. So yeah, this way we do not rebuild something that not necessary be rebuilt. And to achieve this, you can use anything literally that's work as a publisher subscriber. You can use change notifier, value notifier, streams. Usually it's not necessary, but you can. You can implement something by your own. It's also not problem. Or use from helper library few implementation which already described the popular case, for example, with a value loading error and so on. And when we talk about those things, we already mentioned that there should be some communication with the life cycle, and element has a life cycle. Because of this, widget model also has a life cycle. Probably you recognize those methods already. They are pretty similar that in a state exists, because it's not literally state life cycle, but an element which connected with this state life cycle. And working in those environment, in those methods, not only those two, but in general, may require knowledge about what's with widget, what the request, what the intention is. And in this case, we have an access to widget. And here can be a contradictory question, because in MVVM, view model doesn't know anything about view. And here is a widget model knows about widget. But there is no contradiction, because as I already mentioned, the view part in this case is a result of build method, but not widget by itself. Widget by itself, it's still just a configuration intent request to show something and nothing more. So those relation is not broken here. And since widget model connected with the element, and it's pretty stable connection, so widget model and element live and work together forever before garbage collector do not collect them all. So because of this, widget model has an access to build context, so it can operate in this case with a Flutter widget, with Flutter element tree and so on, understand when it's happening, when it's work. Of course, model should not know anything about context and so on. And in build method of this widget, which is responsible for creating view, I also hide those contexts, because in my opinion, it's a good lakmus paper when you say that there should be MVVM here. And after this, try to do some logic in a widget. So maybe something goes wrong already. But of course, all widgets below, because it's a composition of other widget, they have access to context and nothing problem. You even can access the context inside, but yeah, I mean, it's hidden not accidentally, but with a purpose. And since view model by itself is some abstraction, I personally prefer to have interface class, which directly describe those abstraction. Like here is what you can use for create a view, to describe view. So because of this, it's also easier to test, and also help for those separation between people who work on a different parts. So you don't need to wait even for implementation of view model. You can just smoke or substitute whatever those property values which you need. It just layouting what you want to show in those cases. In general, the simplest view model can be like this. It's just one property which describe loadable from internet entity. When we start, we just starting those loading, put those property into loading state, start loading. Before those things happen, there will be loading on the screen. Then when we await it for result, we provide this content and show something or error. Also show some error state. Regarding model in this case, as I said, using dedicated model also helped with some flexibility, because people may want to work with the business logic different way. And to be honest, I don't see any point to enforce people work with the business logic in special way. Because of this, you can implement those model part as you want. If you want, you can just implement directly in those file and that's it, but it's not a production case, because usually in production it makes no sense to put those logic inside. It can orchestrate with the different other classes which responsible for each domain that is necessary for those MVVM part. And just proxying accesses to this. Or oppositely, you can work with your business logic, Redux style, everything in one state and so on and so far, but solve a problem of updating, which usually exists in Redux, by listening those in the model part, understanding what exactly changed and updating only enough, like reacting on those things only when change something that you need. View responsibility of those part and creating view is a build method, as I said, and it's became pretty straightforward. So you have a contract which describe what you can see, and just describing in a different case what you want to show in a loading, in an error, in a build, regular content build. And by itself, it's still a configuration, as I already mentioned. So you can use it just like what I want to show in general. How it will be shown, it's a different topic, but here should be some widget which show something with those parameters. And here is also those factory which I mentioned for that we need to create a widget model. So this factory is provided here, and this way you can easily substitute it, for example, for tests and so on. And operate with those things quite straightforwardly. It can be implemented as it's done with a stateful widget. It can be a different method, but I also see this way with the optional and predefined factory also quite shorter and easier. So regarding testing, as I said, it's aimed to be completely tested as MVVM model is a unit tests. It's easier to test. Widget model usually also should be unit test, but in this case, it's not common. You can, of course, do this, but it will allow requires from you additional work. So in this case, you need to use special wrapper around this unit tests, which allows you control life cycle, emulate those life cycle, what's happening, so to able also test those cases easily. With the view part, it's easily, since build methods should represent the view, you can directly test those build method and try to insert a result of those things, or you can just substitute those factory which we discussed recently and use a stub mock or something. And integrational tests, it's, as always, nothing special. And for reducing those problematic part with a lot of hassle with creating additional entities, connecting them with each other, and so on. We created a few tools. One of them is CLI that you can run from the command line and will create things for you. 2 wrappers, one for IntelliJ, one for VS Code, and the Mason if you prefer Mason. Short summary. So on the right side, we have all those things which I wanted from a library when I started, and it seemed that it's already done. So it's close to Flutter because it's integrated as maximum to Flutter work. It's probably if we just image that's anything, not anything, but globally completely changed how Flutter works, I definitely need to rework library at all because it's aimed to be for Flutter. Efficient rebuild seems to be also reached because of those publisher-subscriber approach. At least I haven't seen any noticeable problem with those things at all. MVVM, so yeah, it's quite straightforward. For any person who want to start, I think this is one of balanced architectural approach which easier to implement. And high code separation, yes, we even when we tested this part, we even tried to put like one person into one layer and making them parallel do not affect each other. And they finished this work completely without problem, but it requires, of course, good planning of, abstraction, creating those abstraction to understand like what is will be in the end, but not how it will be implemented. Now, if you're interested to try, you are welcome. Here's the links to library, and if you like Flutter, you're welcome on my channel. And thank you for your attention, and I'm ready to answer your questions.
Okay. I didn't think that I would be the first one. I also come from the Android ecosystem. And one of the biggest advantages, as you mentioned, of the MVVM is the layers didn't know anything about them. Yeah, so there is a possibility, for example, to have a view model of something, stream of something, of states, of data, of even images. Yeah, and don't you think that we take the good thing? Yeah, so for example. The good architecture with the separations, but we still mix the Flutter components like widgets, and we treat it not like a separate layer. So we end up with something in between.
Yes, a little bit, because it's for Flutter. It's anyway should be integrated with like how Flutter works. So what's happening in Flutter when you want to show something, you literally should declare what you want to show, right? So if you need a container, you need a container. If you need text, you need to put text. If you need a complicated part of UI that you describe and it's works separately, it should be a widget which will at least say that I'm intent to show in this place those part. And we cannot avoid those things anyhow. So doesn't matter what we will use, any architecture or any even basic straightforward approach without architecture. If we work with the Flutter, so if you insert container, right? So you define the properties, which container you want, and inside those container in the build method there are a lot of if else which working. That's the reason why container is not so efficient, but it's still your intent to show those parts. So without working with the widget, we we cannot work with Flutter at all. So we can put some business logic outside. We can use Redux, for example. I mean, just as a business part. We can create a lot of blocks, but if we want to show something to the user, we anyway need to go to widget part. So because of this, I think we are binded together with the widget forever. And as we already discussed during this talk, because of this declarativity and because of Flutter aim to be really easy and so on, we work on those abstraction on widget layer. Because there is a lot of work behind. There is elements, there is a render object, there is a layouting. You can check. There is a checking different layers, how they composed. Then behind, they connected to another object which describe in general what you want to show. It's send it somewhere else. But the point of interaction for you, it's always widget. So we cannot do this other way.
Okay. What I meant, that is, in a case when there is, for example, MVVM created with the blocks. So we mean this block of this library, yeah? This possibility to keep the clean Dart code as long as is possible. For example, till the concrete widgets, yeah? Here we have mixing, treating widgets like sometimes, yeah, part of the UI and sometimes part of the composition. What is of course true, yeah. This is really, yeah, but we can also think of the clean architecture like not mixing the libraries, but also keeping the raw, yeah, code like Dart, Kotlin, JavaScript, yeah, in the whole code base, as long as it is possible, not mixing with this, for example, UI parts, yeah?
Yeah, but those parts which you described regarding block and so on, it's related to business logic. So if we talk like in general, even not regarding implementations and so on, if we take approach of block, the basic of block, and for example, MVVM or MVI or MVC, it's something that related to business part. It's of course not related to view part. And in a case, if you work with the block, for example, doesn't matter which library. So your block is pure Dart code because it's should not know about Flutter because it's a business part. So in this case, it's if put correlation between those things, it's a model. So and it doesn't know about Flutter. Yeah. In this case, those something that related to those parts of application which we really don't care about what is Flutter or not Flutter and so on. But view model, it's already closer to what we want to show, and it's an abstraction of what will be shown. So like pretty abstract way to say that here's everything that you can use for defining what to show a user. So yeah, in a case of proper using block, I would say those two things, they will be joined in one place in the widget. Because you have a business logic, pure business logic, and all those things which when you decide what to show, how to show, and in the end, the composition of those things, it goes to widget. So yeah, it's just a additional separation. With a, again, pros and cons. You need to write more things, create more instances, think about more logic, but at the same time, you have a separation of more concerns in a different place.
Okay, thank you very much for your complete answer. Thank you.
Do we have time for one more question? Yes, one more question, one short from someone. There's a pink guy. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for presentation. So I have several questions. First one is mostly developers are designing own frameworks to solve some problematic. For example, if we look on Android, view model architecture component was designed to solve the problem of saving state due to orientation change. Which problem your framework are solving better than another provider-based state management frameworks in Flutter? Its first one is, and second one is short. Did you count it, how much money you spent to support your bicycle from the customer's budget on the first project that you pitched usage of your implementation?
Regarding the those first question, what is solving and so on, maybe in Android it solve exactly those problems, but MVVM is created quite before Android, if I remember correctly, and in a lot of other technologies. And in this case, it's solving problem of separation those things. Of course, we can write code which will do the same thing in a widget layer. We can create a separate controller or whatever which contains business logic, block, or whatever. And in those implementation which I did, I tried to simplify those parts which work with the view part, presentation part, and the business logic. So business logic you can implement whatever you want. Presentation part should be something that more complicated. It's cover different cases, cover it something connected with the life cycle of widget and so on. Because if you try to cover all those cases in one place, for example, in widget, it will be quite, it's not impossible. It's completely possible, but it will be huge, all those things. And because of this, it's maybe it's easier to move it out into a different place, and it's easier to test when you have a separation between those things. And view part, of course, I know that a lot of people would say that is no view and so on. I agree with those. Let's say those parts which describe what to show, it's also became easier to test, because when you need to properly test every possible cases, you need to create an environment for those things, change it, and tests is also quite can be quite expensive. When you can directly provide in a place and say, this is bunch of values. For those values, you anyway will build the view which is not contains logic but became purely declarative, because the main goal is to make those part in view, why it's provided as a abstraction class, those configuration, to make it just properly declarative and say it will be looks like this, no option other.
Thank you for your questions. Thank you, Mikhail, for your talk. Definitely there will be chance to ask more questions to Mikhail as we are going right now for a beer, right? Thank you.